who you called Moors were the Africans who were forcefully converted to Islam in the year 640 AD by the Arab Muslims. When the Moors were conquered in the year 1492, after ruling Europe such as Spain and Portugal for over 700 years, since 711 AD, they were used by the victorious Europeans to penetrate into Africa and enslave Africans. In 1517, Bartholomew de las Casas, a Catholic priest, after getting much information from the conquered Moors, advised the European monarchies, the European kings and queens, to use Africans in Africa as slaves in America, since the Native Americans were weak and were dying from food poisoning, which was masterminded by Christopher Columbus and the Spanish monarchy. Before this time, the Portuguese under Prince Henry the Navigator, around the mid-15th century, have already started using Africans as slaves in Portugal and Spain. Hearing this information, in the year 1562, Queen Elizabeth I gave John Hawkins the ship known as Jesus of Lubeck to take Africans as slaves to America in order to replace the dying Native Americans. In fact, the first Africans used as slaves were the conquered Moors who ruled Spain and Portugal until 1492. The Moors completely destroyed Africa, and this is a historical truth we must speak out. They gave out African secret knowledge from Nubia, from Egypt and Ethiopia to the Europeans. Europeans never had any standard education. It was Africans who built and taught in the prestigious University of Salamanca and 17 extra universities. In fact, the founders of Oxford and Cambridge sat on the feet of these African Moors to learn how to run a university system. It was the knowledge they got from the Moors they used in establishing the Oxford and Cambridge universities. The African Moors taught Europeans how to bathe using chemicals as soap invented in Egypt. Even the Roman bathing system was copied from the royal household of Nubia and Egypt. Medieval Europeans, honestly speaking, bathe once in a week. They don't even know how to do a normal burial ceremony until the African Moors came and taught them the basics. The African Moors also introduced the first street lights in Europe because Europe was in a dark age, both mentally and physically. The Catholic Church was against the use of numbers because they saw numbers as the signs of the devil. In fact, it was the Roman figure that was accepted generally in Europe. European kings and queens could not read and write until African Moors, that is African female Moors, started teaching them the basics of reading and writing. It was through the knowledge and wisdom of these African Moors that made Europeans to be able to enter the age of their Renaissance, the age of their Enlightenment, and the age of their Industrial Revolution. The Moors pulled the Europeans from their dark ages and gave them the African civilization. But the Europeans used that knowledge to subdue and enslave Africans in Africa for over 400 years. Until date, we are still suffering from the mistake of these Moors. They facilitated the fall of Africa. When the Arabs invaded North Africa, the Africans who were forcefully converted to Islam and who later became the Moors were the ones who took the Arab Islamic jihadists to every nook and cranny of North Africa, where they helped in destroying the African traditional system. They facilitated the fall of Africa. And this is a truth we must speak out, people of the universe.